it's debate day, and everyone will turn on their sets at 9 o'clock tonight. And you know who has the most on the line? ABC News and its parent company, Disney. I have a new column over at foxnews.com, which I want to read to you. It begins by referencing the CNN debate. CNN, quote, passed its test that came in the form of the first presidential debate in June between President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump. Opinions are divided on whether CNN passed or failed in its interview of Vice President Kamala Harris. And I note, having helped moderate 5 GOP presidential primary debates and being the only non-network individual in debate prep rooms, the grade goes to the network involved, not the host. Debates and big interviews are collective efforts by the organizations hosting them. That's not always true. Candy Crowley colored outside of the lines and had to leave the business because she destroyed the 2012 campaign. But usually it's the organization that you grade. Tuesday, ABC is carrying a very heavy burden. To my knowledge, the network does not have on its payroll even one individual of significant stature as a host, contributor, or executive who is a likely Trump voter. This means in a country that polling portrays as evenly divided between blue and red, inputs from Trump supporters into the debate preparation process are almost certainly unlikely to occur. And thus, it's extremely unlikely for the debate to feature questions that such voters believe, red voters, believe are relevant and indeed crucial to the choice before the country. How could ABC get to the high ground from which the questions vetted by its debate team, posed by its hosts David Muir and Lindsay Davis, don't result in a Bud Light level meltdown for its brand and the brands of its parent company, Disney? The surest path is to lean heavily on commander-in-chief questions. Presidents don't pass laws. They either sign what Congress sends them or they veto such bills. Hypotheticals about whether a candidate would sign this or that hypothetical bill are just hobby horses for ideologues posing the queries. A president does indisputably have control over America's national security and the deployment and use of its military. The primary relevant examples of this power are, 1, President Biden's decision to pull American troops out of Afghanistan in the way he did with the consequences that pullout had, and 2, support or refusal of support for Israel in its multi-front war with Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and of course Iran. The head of the snake, as many of the supporters of the Jewish state deem the mullahs in Iran. A third obvious question in this category is whether former President Trump did the right thing when he ordered Qasem Soleimani killed in Iraq on January 3rd, 2020. There are many other extremely relevant questions in this area, including whether American military force will be deployed to defend our treaty ally, the Philippines, in its escalating confrontations with China's People's Liberation Army Navy, or to defend the island state of Taiwan if it is attacked by China. Another obvious area is America's southern border. What both candidates will do about the more than 10 million migrants who crossed into the country without invitation in the past 3.5 years should be on the agenda. Because the enforcement of Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972 rests with the president and his or her executive branch appointees, and the Biden-Harris administration has proposed new controversial regulations about Title IX. Don't forget that. An obvious and pressing question should be whether and why the candidates support biological boys who identify as girls should be allowed to compete in scholastic sports. While we know the positions of both candidates on abortion, it is not a priority question, but as FDA-approved drugs that result in abortion have been litigated, much litigated, a question in the area would not be inappropriate, but, if asked, should be matched with one about when such drugs become inappropriate to prescribe. Planned Parenthood states on its website that, quote, in general, you can have a medication abortion up to 77 days, 11 weeks after the first day of your last period. The organization adds if it's been 78 days or more since the first day of your period, you can have an in-clinic abortion to end your pregnancy, close quote. So the answer should be not after 78 days. Not even Planned Parenthood thinks that. A question about ensuring the interstate availability of this federally approved medication has already been litigated. Not particularly germane. But Democrats want a question on abortion. If they get one, it should be paired with the president and his authority over the Health and Human Services Department, which controls the FDA, but also about Title IX, which presidents control via the Department of Education. So is the forthcoming response from a new president to the explosion of anti-Semitism on campuses. That's the Department of Education responsibility. So is the pace and success of the massive expenditures on the already legislated Green New Deal provision. So is the future of nuclear energy and permit reform to expedite fossil fuel extraction and export. If a president can act unilaterally in the area, it ought to be on the table. All of these questions are legitimate. Will any of them get asked? Asking both candidates how they assess each other's choice of a running mate would be interesting. There are 100 fair and tough questions to pose. If ABC produces an equal number of questions that strike both red and blue America as pointed but fair, and as many that are difficult for former President Trump to answer as are posed in that category for Vice President Harris, the network and by extension Disney will pass. If not, the whole country and its electorate will have rendered a verdict of fail on both network and Disney by Wednesday.